Thanks for sharing your evening with us. Right now, we're in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Herbert and Isla Brandt have just returned home from a Florida vacation with their 4 children. 15-year-old Angela, a pair of younger girls, ages 3 and 2, and 13-year-old Carl, who sits at the kitchen table with a loaded 9mm tucked into his waistband.
And minus a dog.
Yeah, they came back sans the dog. Very sad. Something evil stirs inside Carl Brandt. He climbs the stairs. Herbert, standing in front of the mirror, white ladders of shaving cream along his jawline, never sees it coming. Without argument, without warning, without a sound, 13-year-old Carl Brandt appeared in the doorway and shot his father. Pop! A brief moment of hesitation, then 2 more shots. Pop, pop. Herbert falls. Angela hears her mother scream, "No, Charlie, no! Call the police! Angela, call the police!" Those were Isla's last word before 2 bullets tore through her abdomen. One hits the son she hasn't met. Neither she nor the unborn child will survive the attack. As Carl stalks out of the room, Herbert, bleeding from 3 gunshot wounds, manages to pull the drain in the bathtub so his wife will not drown, then locks himself in the bathroom and dials 911. Carl is already moving to kill Angela in her bedroom. There's no time for her to call. She watches, frozen in fear, as Carl, her own brother, aims the 9mm at her and pulls the trigger. But the gun doesn't fire. Jammed or empty, it doesn't matter. Carl wants blood. He throws the weapon at Angela. She manages to kick the gun under the bed as Carl lunges for her throat. Fighting for her life, Angela grapples with her younger brother. As Carl's hands clench around her throat, she looks him in the eyes and says, "I love you, Carl. I love you." She says it again and again and watches the glazed look in his eyes slowly start to fade. Carl snaps out of it. Angela holds him for a moment and then turns on the TV like noise can prevent more killing. As Carl calms down, his rage turns quickly to fear about being left alone. Angela promises she won't leave. She even tells Carl they can flee, they can run away together. We can escape to a hippie commune. She tells him to go get blankets for the little ones who are still fast asleep. Carl listens, but he doesn't fully trust Angela, so he walks backwards, keeping his eyes on her. But as soon as Angela sees her chance, she bolts for the door. Carl gives chase, but stops at the front doorway screaming, "You promised you wouldn't leave me. You promised you wouldn't leave me." Angela runs. She pounds on doors in a torn, bloodied nightgown. She hits one porch, then the next. At one door, 16-year-old Sandy Radcliffe opens up to Carl instead of Angela, and she will never forget how matter-of-fact Carl sounded. Quote, "Sandy, I just shot my mom and dad." Across the street, neighbors respond and carry the sleeping toddlers out of the house in wrapped blankets. Officer James Quinn is the first on scene. He kicks down the locked bedroom door. Inside, Isla is dead in the bathtub. On the floor, face still partially covered in shaving cream, Herbert is bleeding profusely, but hanging on for dear life.
Whoa. Like what had come over this kid? I mean, and what sticks out to me, you know, aside from the absolute horrific carnage, is when Angela is, first of all, as a teenager, has got the wherewithal in her brain to say, you know, to tell Carl that she loves him, right? And slowly, but still happening, he loses the glaze in his eyes. So clearly something had taken over this kid. I mean, something had to have. That is not average behavior.
It is entirely abnormal. It's as if something went off or a switch was activated.
Yeah.
It's like it's order 66. It's really
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
And particularly for Angela to be able to vividly remember watching the glazed look in his eyes fade out.
Yeah.
I've never witnessed something like that. I can't even begin to imagine what that might look like. It's terrifying just to read it.
Yeah. It's almost like a person's under a trance, right? Like under just some sort of trance that like they're not there. Whoever is normally in their brain is not there. They took a lunch break, right? And it is just something else has come over them. It is wild. I'm curious what could be causing that, and what flipped that switch
For your mom, your dad, and then you went for your sister.
He was going to go through the entire family. He was going to kill everyone.
Probably. Yeah. I don't doubt it at all. Well, at Parkview Hospital, Herbert repeats the same phrase over and over before going into surgery. I don't know why my son did this. That's all Herbert has. As her father was rushed to the hospital and Carl was taken into custody, a shell-shocked Angela sat in a neighbor's house crying. Before long, they brought her little sisters there, and she held them tight as someone told her, "I'm really sorry, but your mom is dead."
And at this point, she doesn't even know if her dad's going to make it.
No.
I mean, she could be parent number one right now. Like, she has no idea.
No, it's such an earth-shattering moment. It's hard to even comprehend as we sit here and talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, in a matter of minutes,
Yeah.
her mother, her unborn, baby brother, wiped out. Her dad, possibly.
And back at the station,
Yeah.
police aren't sure what to make of their 13-year-old killer. His eyes are dilated. He's clearly in shock, and Carl himself struggled to understand why he'd done it. Quote, "Everything sort of snapped in my mind. I felt like I never felt before. It was like I was sort of programmed to do it." He told him about the dog. Said, quote, "I wanted to cry, but I stopped myself."
So that's really, really big red flag right there. Like that's something this is complete speculation. I don't think he felt he was allowed to show emotion. And both can be true. You can both have a loving home and emotions not welcome.
Sure. Yeah, and I wish I could back you up on that assertion.
Right.
I don't have any of that in my research, just because everything, as you said, you could have a loving home. It doesn't necessarily mean everybody's crying and showing emotion all the time.
Right.
But there was not some of these instances where we say, "Oh, the writing was on the wall."
Right.
There was no writing on the wall here.
Right.
Aside from that stuff, Carl mentions a police detective magazine he bought in Florida. He says there was talk about moving to a farm, some tests he has to make up for school, but really there's just no rhyme or reason to any of it.
Right.
Herbert stabilizes following surgery and has nothing to offer police as to why his son did this. Now, I'm finding it hard to believe from where I'm sitting, Don Palumbo, but Herbert tells police and he claims, quote, "Carl is the nicest boy you'd ever want to meet." I don't want to meet Carl, Don. I don't want to meet him. And I just don't believe you, Herbert. I'm sorry. Police drive Carl to visit his father, and Carl apologizes to his dad again and again. Afterward, on the ride back to his holding cell at the station, Carl asks the officer for permission to cry. How
He
weird is
asked for
that?
permission to cry.
A stranger, the officer, he's riding in back. He's getting back to his cell. He's like, "Sir, is it okay if I cry?"
See, something about that is just
Weird.
not
It's a little weird.
That
Little
feels
weird.
like a learned behavior.
It's a little weird.
I
It's
don't
a good
know.
observation. It might be.
And there's no way to prove it. I get it. I get
yeah.
it. But that feels like he's never been allowed to show emotion.
It kind of does. His mother is eventually cremated, her ashes scattered in Florida. Carl attends the funeral in leg shackles. At least one relative reads his flat face as no remorse. Neighbors and teachers call him the last kid who would do this, the one who babysat, who played with his sisters in the yard, a good student who was thoughtful and careful. Thoughtful. That's a very specific compliment to give somebody. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are very nice. A lot of people are loving. A lot of people are a lot of things.
But not everybody is thoughtful.
Not everybody's thoughtful.
Exactly.
Because being thoughtful is very intentional. It's very
Right.
specific. You're going out of your way to be thoughtful. a lot of these other things just come naturally. So I thought that one really stood out. Within days of the shooting, Carl undergoes a battery of court-ordered psychological evaluations with 3 separate doctors. But the psychiatric professionals were utterly mystified by Carl Brandt. They say no psychosis or diagnosable mental illness, not even distorted patterns of thinking that could have led to such an outburst of violence. Carl had never been in any serious trouble. He loved his family, and from everything they could gather, that love had always been returned.
For me, no psychosis or diagnosable mental illness at that time.
According to what we understood about these things in 1971, for sure. And 3 separate professionals, so they were really trying.
They were, right. It wasn't for lack of trying, that's for sure.
The court demanded answers, but these experts couldn't find any. One doctor said Carl had an irresistible impulse, that he had a moral, not a mental defect. Although there is seemingly nothing to diagnose, Carl's evaluation did not come without a warning. One doctor suggested this could reoccur without treatment and without recommended hospitalization.
Well, and what treatment? If there's no diagnosis, what treatment?
It's a good question. So what will become of our 13-year-old killer and the rest of the Brandt family? Find out after the break.